Welcome to Creative Cooking. Today we're going to make Lobster Newburg. It's like a blast from the past in the 1980s. And what I have here is a couple of lobster tails. They look a little different from what I'm used to. I don't believe these come from New England. If you recognize that pattern on the back, let me know where they come from. Leave it down in the description. So a very important thing to do is take a pair of kitchen shears and just cut a slit at the top of the shell. All right, and the reason you're doing this is so that it makes it much easier to remove the shell once these are done. All right, so let me know about the color. I've never seen them that way before. And we're going to boil them. It's light boil, not a heavy boil. And the rule of thumb is basically 1 minute per ounce. And these are 7.5 ounces each with the shell. And so I boiled them for like 8 minutes and then immediately pulled them out to a plate, because now you want to let them cool down so that you can remove those shells and go on to the next step of this recipe. So you might even want to save that liquid if you're planning on a seafood chowder or something. You can use that as your liquid. You basically created a little broth. And here we're going to peel them. And you can see it's like peeling an egg. The shells come right off without any difficulty. And what you're left with is this beautiful solid piece of lobster tail meat. All right, I'm going to weigh it out just so I see what it weighs when it's cooked. I have 2 of them and they weigh exactly the same at 7.6 ounces. So that's about 7.5 ounces each. I'm going to cut those into little bite-sized pieces because, of course, you don't want big chunks. If you see the shells that we're going to use, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bake these. Just remember that when you do, you want that perforated side up. All right, that's important. And I'm only making 2, even though I'm making a lot of Newberg. Only myself and one of my guests actually wanted one of these. So my wife doesn't like lobster, and one of my other guests didn't like lobster, and that's fine. So while those are baking, we're going to prepare the Newberg sauce itself. I've got 3 egg yolks here, just the yolks. You can save the whites to do something else. We're going to go ahead and scramble them up a little bit. The egg yolks, they liquefy very easily. So just whisk it around for a bit. And then we're going to add all the ingredients at once. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because it's easier. Normally, I would temper the eggs with hot cream. I'd make part of the sauce and temper the eggs and put them back in. But this is a much easier way. And it all has to do with how you control the heat. So we're going to go ahead and put up to a cup of heavy cream. Today I'm using 3 tablespoons of cognac, but a lot of recipes call for dry sherry, and I have made it with dry sherry before, and I think I like it better. But I didn't want to buy a whole bottle of sherry, so I just bought a little bottle of cognac, and that works out good too, though. And then we're going to season this. We're going to put in, maybe up to 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. We've got kosher salt, and I'm going to say start with a 1/2 teaspoon. Don't use a whole teaspoon. I think it's too much. We can put in some paprika, which I mixed with some cayenne pepper, and then a pinch of nutmeg, and that's pretty much it. Give that all a good mix, okay? And it's very smooth. And now we're going to cook it. And I'm going to show you how to do that and why this method works so well. But before we actually put the cream in the pan, I'm going to go ahead and add butter, 2 tablespoons. And a lot of people, when they make this recipe, would actually saute the lobster and heat it up with the butter. But I don't want to do that. I want the butter in there, but I don't want is to cook that lobster any more than I have to. So I'm going to go ahead and take the pan off the heat. You'll notice it's off the heat. And the reason for this is that we want to cool down the pan and warm up the cream. And then we're going to return it to the stove on low. All right, I'm going to put it on low heat, and we're going to keep it moving. And little by little, as we heat this up, you are actually tempering the eggs as this heats up from basically room temperature. All right, and so you'll have a nice creamy sauce without lumps. Once that comes up to heat, go ahead and add your lobster back in. All right, again, that lobster's already cooked. So basically what we're going to do here is just mix it around, bring it to a simmer, and once it does, that sauce will thicken. You'll notice that the cream actually thickens, and that's just one of the unique things about heavy cream. That will thicken the sauce. And if it gets too thick, well, you can always thin it out. Meanwhile, while we were doing that, our pastry shells were baking. They're beautiful golden brown on the outside. And it's time to actually, serve one up. And here's how you do it. You pull that cap off. All right, you pull that right out. And what you got is a nice deep cavity in there for our Lobster Newburg. All right. And remember, I made enough of this Newberg to make 6 of those pastry shells. So, you can serve up to 6 people with this recipe, or cut it in half and make only 3, right? And also bear in mind that you can do this with shrimp. You can do it with baked scallops. Not baked, what am I saying? Bay scallops, all right? And you cook them first because you don't want them watering down that sauce. You want to keep that sauce nice and thick. So whether you fill them to the top or have them spilling over, if you made extra sauce, you can let that dribble down the edges. However you want to serve it. You can even do this on toast points or anything like that. So all that's left now is to put the cover back on. All right, little hat. And we also want to clean up that plate for a better presentation. You could have put some parsley over this just to give it some color, but I didn't bother today. I just did this, and it came out great. So I hope you give it a try, and I hope you come back each week for more great videos made for people who like to cook. Until then, bon appetit.